my day.
to it.
Thank you.
Yes, maybe we'll get back to it tomorrow. As we have Brenden Nunes here, Sactown Sports Kings insider, and fresh off the press, he has dropped an article about not only the players that worked out with the Sacramento Kings, but some other players that Brenden has been interested in or thinks that there could be some fit there. But before we get there, Brenden, I wanted to ask you, and I'm going to ask Whitey this again, because not too long ago I said, Whitey, this has got to be the craziest Western Conference. I'm not going to say ever, but in a very long time. And Whitey basically said, well, there are a lot of really good teams, but I don't know if there are any great teams. But either way, when I'm reading this Hoops Hype small forward list, and they haven't released all of them, but they released small forwards and shooting guards, and I'm seeing, okay, well, the Kings have Malik Monk, who might be their sixth man in the top 15 of shooting guards. They have DeMar DeRozan, who they just added, who is a top 8, according to Hoops Hype, a top 8 small forward. You know Domas is going to be a top 5 center. Yep. And I'm pretty sure De'Aaron is going to be a top 10 point guard, right? So for the team to have top 15 players and 4 guys in your rotation, and Vegas has them at 46.5, and they might be fighting for a playoff spot, this has to be the craziest Western Conference we've ever been a part of. Because then I read through the Grizzlies, the Nuggets, the Mavs, the Thunder, right? The Timberwolves, and they all have them. Right. So then you think, okay, well, I guess that makes more sense. You need to, that is the prerequisite just to be a part of the conversation.
For sure. And I think that's fair. I think the difference on Sacramento's side is, yes, you have multiple guys that are all-star caliber, but you don't have an MVP caliber guy, which I think is what really separates it when it gets down to the postseason. I think regular season, I think this team's going to be really good for what it's worth. I've had and talked about some of my concerns about potential fit. Really, I'm just talking about in a playoff series. When a team is sitting there scheming for you.
Right.
Regular season, I think this team's going to be really good. You know, I think we're talking about 50 wins, like kind of right around there, you know, and I'm not saying in the 50s, I'm saying 50 for what it's worth. And, you know, roughly, but they do have a lot of talent. And I think that there could be some growing pains. Like Damian Lillard was just on one of my favorite podcasts, is Jeff Teague. I think that man is absolutely
okay. Well, I thought
hilarious.
you were going to say Gilbert. So Jeff Teague is fine
for entertainment, but not for educational purposes, right? Which I guess Teague is a little bit of both. But Dame was just on it, and he was talking about how much when he went to Milwaukee, that he was trying to cater to everybody else. And then there had to be conversations about like, no, we still need you to do you. But point being, like, there's growing pains. And I think that there could be some of the same that goes on with DeMar, whether it's the pace, like you were kind of talking about earlier, and what's the balance of how much we need to run with, we need you to run with us. But at the same time, we need to let you slow it down sometimes when the game's getting out of hand. So I think there will be growing pains, and I'll be curious to see how the beginning first 20 games or so goes for this team. Mike Brown's a guy that likes to take it in 5-game increments. So kind of looking at it from that point of view, but they have a lot of talent. I think the difference is they don't have a guy that's top 2 at any of their positions. Yeah,
that's a good point. And we're talking to Brenden Nunes here, Sactown Sports Kings insider. You bring up DeMar DeRozan, and we were discussing the miles per game that these guys are running. And it's ridiculous, Brenden. I mean, you have the Kings, they have 3 players that are in the top 3 for the most miles run per game and most miles run total. They have Keegan Murray, Domantas Sabonis, and of course, De'Aaron Fox. So I look at this, and national media is saying, why would they bring in DeMar DeRozan? He doesn't fit what they want to do. I look at those numbers, and also being on the most miles run in total for 2023, 2024, number 1 being Domantas Sabonis, and Keegan and De'Aaron Fox being on that list as well. I look at it, and I'm starting to think, yes, they looked at Lauri Markkanen, the Kings did, but I think the Kings saw DeMar DeRozan and thought, yeah, he is different, right? We're talking about Love Island. Oh, he's not my type on paper. Well, maybe you need to change your type. That's why you're still single. And I think you look at the most total miles run.
That was a good one.
For the Sacramento Kings, and I think the Kings maybe thought, I don't know if this is sustainable. We're burning out. There's some games we just don't show up, maybe because our legs. We know you're there at the practices. Mike Brown, I mean, he's not Tom Thibodeau, but they practice hard. Then they go out there and they run up and down for 82 games. And I think maybe they said, yeah, everybody might think that the fit is not it with DeMar DeRozan, but that's kind of the point. We need to start molding this flow offense into something that's much more sustainable, especially in this Western Conference with no days off.
Yeah, I would push back a little bit. Like when we talked to Mike Brown in Vegas, he said that one of the things DeMar is going to have to adjust to is that pace, and not just like full court, because I think that it's easy for most guys in the NBA to play in the open court, in transition. They're all smart, especially DeMar DeRozan, smart guy all around, athletic, can get up and down. I was surprised he was on that top miles list that you kind of went through. But they're going to play fast. I still think that's part of their offense. When it comes down to it, they have what they think and probably is the fastest guy in the league. Yeah. And that's a big part of their identity. Domas can push the paint or push the pace as a 5, get the board, run it himself. So I think that that's going to stick. But naturally, the game does slow down sometimes. And I think that to your point of that's where other teams were going on runs, is that you can't always force it. Right. There are moments where you just are kind of forced to slow it down a little bit. And that's where DeMar is good of, we need you to go get a bucket. Like we saw Harrison Barnes post-ups maybe once, twice a game last year. And can you imagine how much better that's going to be with DeMar DeRozan compared to Harrison Barnes? And HB was okay at it, but DeMar's just on another level. So I still think that they are going to have that identity of pace, and that will be an adjustment for DeMar. But there's moments where other teams on a 8-0 run, and it's like, all right, let's relax a little bit. Yeah. And we need to get a good shot rather than taking a quick one just because that's part of our offense.
Yeah, it's open. It's open. If you got to take it, it's open.
Because the next thing you know, like that 8-0 run, it's not just an 8-0 run. It's an 8-0 run that happens in like 40 seconds.
That's what I told Simone, you're going to make a sandwich.
Right.
You come back, it's 100%. Gone. The lead's gone. Right. So I think that we can meet in the middle here. And yes, they're not going to be a completely different team, but they needed a counterpunch. And I think that DeMar DeRozan gives them that counterpunch. Going back to the conversation of the top players, the 5-3-0 is asking the question, if Sabonis scored just 5 to 7 points more per game, he'd be MVP caliber, right? I think the answer is yes. I think 5 to 7 points more per game.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Well, we're probably getting to like 28 range. What was he at last year?
And he's not a natural scorer, I think, is the main thing.
I mean, if anything, there's moments like I just went through kind of the games that they had against last year, the in-season tournament teams this year. Houston's part of that group. And if you remember really early, first 10 games of the year, they played Houston in consecutive games with no De'Aaron Fox. And there was a game where Domas shot the ball 4 times. Yeah. I'm like, dude,
that can't happen.
You got to shoot the ball. Yeah. Like, I understand that there's actually a lot of value in that his first instinct is to pass. But there's got to be moments where, you got to go get a bucket right now. But when you got Keegan continuing to develop, now you also got DeMar as a fail-safe. Like, you're sort of allowing Domas to do what is the more natural thing for him in the first place. So, but yes, if he was at that 19.4 last year, we get up to 24. All of a sudden, we're talking 24, 13, and 8. Yeah. Yeah, we're probably up there, but you also got to get a lot of wins as a team.
Well, I think that's what's funny because he's on the MVP ladder. I mean, I don't think he got past 6.
He was 8th last year, 7th the year before.
Okay, so he's there, and that's why people have something to say about Domas because, if you looked at that on paper, you would at least think this team doesn't have to worry about the play-in. Right. But the way he does it is different.
Yeah. I mean, I think that to your point of the West being so wide open, it goes both ways, right? Like, there's no reason that they can't be Dallas from last year, to be honest. Like, I do think that Luka part is the difference, but really, I kind of think Domas is what he is for the most part, and maybe that's unfair, but I think that De'Aaron's the one where it's like, we've seen flashes of like, there could be more. There could be more defensively. He's just got to be more consistent really with everything. I think that this year he's going to refine his shot selection a little bit. Last year it was about like, all right, I'm a confident 3-point shooter. And now he was getting it up a little bit too much at times. So refining that shot selection a little bit. He's the one I look at as if we're talking to somebody that could reach that MVP caliber. I kind of look at De'Aaron, and I think that Mike Brown talks about him the same way. You know, he compliments the both, but he's constantly saying like De'Aaron's got another level to him, that he's one of those ones essentially. So I think that it goes both ways though. The West being so wide open, I still think that we're going to have a conversation probably about trying to make sure you stay in that top 6.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point because when I look at all the other teams that we talked about, and you have, okay, the Timberwolves. Oh, we had the same conversation. Okay, but the Timberwolves, if Rudy Gobert is probably in your top 6 center, right? Probably top 6, top 5, but you got Anthony Edwards, who's the number 1. They have him ranked number 1 shooting guard. Okay, let's go to OKC. Like you said, OKC, MVP candidate.
Yep.
Mavs, MVP candidate. Then you have
Denver,
MVP candidate. Then you have the Suns, they're just completely weird.
Yeah,
but then you have the Pelicans, who I think the Pelicans, oddly enough, are in a similar situation to the Kings because Zion, you going to figure this thing out? We know, what did he lose, 25 pounds? I know you saw the picture went viral. Zion, are you going to be able to take this thing to the next level or not? And I think that's the De'Aaron Fox question. Right now, everybody, the national media is looking at Sacramento. They're saying, that's a nice team. Hey, for Sacramento and what they've been through the last couple of decades,
right,
that's a nice team. And at what point if and when are the Kings going to say, no, we're more than just a nice team and a respectable team? We can actually do some things. And I think that is directly connected to one De'Aaron Fox and maybe and to a lesser degree, Keegan Murray. And we know what DeMar is going to bring to the table. But that's why I said these two guys, we're trying to see, how good are you going to be? Right. And that's why earlier on I said there's three guys on this team, and no particular order, that I believe huge seasons for. Okay. No particular order. Keegan Murray, De'Aaron Fox, and Mike Brown. Those 3 guys, to me, have the not most to prove, but the most that they can show this season. Keegan, you're on every top 25, under 25 list, but are you going to be in the top 10?
Nope.
De'Aaron, you're a top 10 point guard. You going to get to top 5?
Contract year, essentially, by the way. You want that super max?
You going to cook?
Right.
You going to cook or not?
Right.
And Mike Brown, we know what you did when you came in and took over for the Kings. Can you continue to do this? You drop back down. We know there are injuries. You go out and you get DeMar. He must have been aware of it. Not to say he signed off or not, but he was at least aware of it. What can you do when you have 3 top 15 players on a team, Western Conference or not? So I think those guys have a lot to show. I won't say prove, but a lot to show this coming season. Coming up next, another segment with Brenden Nunes. We talk about Nasir Little, who has just been waived from the Suns. Do we see something there? Also, we talk about Brendan's article about the guys that the Kings did work out. Any needle movers? And yes, we'll talk about Timmy time. Stiles and Watkins, Sactown Sports.
The NFL's leading rusher plays here.
The handoff to McCaffrey, walks in the end zone. Handoff to McCaffrey, takes it right down to the goal line. He does his thing again. McCaffrey goes in motion right. Backwards pass led by Juszczyk. A block there. Hurdles the man. 10, 5, touchdown! CMC!
You can hear all of Christian McCaffrey's touchdowns on your home for 49ers football. Sactown Sports.
Welcome to the Tap House Restaurant at Bartley Kavanaugh Golf Course. With an array of local craft brews from a selection of 20 taps, the Tap House menu boasts freshly made sandwiches, crisp salads, and a variety of specialty entrees. The Tap House is the perfect place for a round after your round at Bartley Kavanaugh Golf Course, especially during happy hour from 3 to 6 daily. Drop by the Tap House Restaurant for scenic views, exquisite food, and a hearty welcome. The Tap House at Bartley Kavanaugh Golf Course.
Sacramento, Dierks Bentley's coming to town.
Getting drunk on a plane.
For his only show in California this year, Saturday, September 28th at Heart Health Park for Country in the Park 2.
What was I thinking?
And he's bringing some friends. Parmalee.
I want to close your eyes for this.
Tyler Rich. Dasha. And more. Saturday, September 28th at Heart Health Park. Get your tickets today before they're sold out at CITPfest.com.
Brought to you by the California Army National Guard and Red's Pizzeria and Tap House.
Time to check out Capital Casino, conveniently located at 411 North 16th Street in downtown Sacramento.
Live and local.
This is Sactown Sports.
Stiles and Watkins, Sactown Sports, taking up to 2 p.m. Brenden Nunes joining us, Sactown Sports Kings Insider. And there is a very hot topic going on right now in the Sac Chat, whether or not Brenden has frosted tips.
Okay.
From what I'm seeing, they kind of look frosted to me.
No, they do not.
Well, Brenden,
chilly
can you tell the story
Oh, God.
that you, and I never heard of this, and I told Chris, I did bleach my hair too. You know, I had to do it. Everybody else was doing it. But you said you went the extra mile. This is something I never heard of. Can you please tell the people, Brenden?
Yeah, classic white kid, was a big Eminem guy growing up. And in middle school, I decided to bleach my hair. And I just didn't really understand how this worked, I guess. I thought you had to fully commit, so I bleached my eyebrows too. And I hear Ron's laugh in the back.
That's right now. I grew up around,
and I left it in for way too long too. It
Did
was
it
like
burn?
really light. Yeah,
Oh, my goodness.
That's when I took it out. Was like, oh yeah, no, I'm done now.
You did this at home? It wasn't even a professional?
No, yeah, I did it in my bathroom.
Oh, you got to do it yourself.
Yeah.
I think my mom did mine.
My mom put it in, but then just like disappeared.
What is going on?
And I think
you dyed your hair too?
Yeah. I mean, had to. 7th grade.
Yeah.
Had to.
7th grade. Yeah, probably about the same time as me. I have a picture that I just refuse to show anybody.
Yeah,
But Brenden, I'm telling you, I know a lot of white guys. Never saw the eyebrows, brother.
No, yeah, I know.
Never saw.
Yeah.
That's a Brenden special.
No, we don't got to call it that.
I need a picture.
Yeah.
No, you don't need a picture.
Every time Brenden comes on the show.
To do that, B, you felt like that was the right move?
I just wanted to try it, I guess. I also just started playing soccer. I don't know why that matters, but I just was that was the first time I ever did that and was just I just want to change up the look.
Well, you know what? It reminds me, and I don't know if somebody out there knows what I'm talking about, but when you would get to the playoffs or you go to a tournament, those teams where everybody would bleach their hair.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to bleach our hair and we're going to go on this playoff run. I think the records for those teams, awful. Those teams always lose. If your kid is saying, oh, we're going to bleach our hair, don't. Yeah. That team never wins.
Yeah.
That team goes 1-2 barbecue. Don't do it. And Brenden and Brendan's family, if you're listening, let's get Brendan's bleached eyebrows. Let's get that picture.
To the text line.
And we actually need it for your media credential.
No,
yes.
Just like Jimmy Butler.
Yeah. That's right.
I don't think so, guys.
For his media credential. Well, Brenden will be in the building with that media credential for all of the Kings games. And Brenden, you just put out an article about the teams or the players that the Kings have worked out. And really, I think Kyle and I landed on Seti Osman as being the best, at least the most, him and Dougie McBuckets at least raised our eyebrows the most.
Stop it.
Well, I'm just saying the most. Well, I actually didn't mean to do that.
Yeah. Okay.
Raised our bleach tipped eyebrows the most. But I wanted to ask you about Nasir Little, who just got waived from the Suns. Suns trying to wheel and deal some money there.
Yeah.
What do you think about Nasir Little? Do you think there could be any interest there from the Sacramento Kings? Because I know the Kings fans are thinking about it.
Yeah, for what it's worth, just because I love basketball reference nicknames, I looked this guy up because you told me this was about to happen, I guess. Philosopher Nas is the nickname. And I tried to find the origin. Really, all it is that Kobe White and Cam Johnson in college said, yeah, this guy's just really introspective. So we started calling him Philosopher Nas.
Interesting.
I'm not buying it. I think there's probably more to the story. That, don't want to tell every story at college.
Right.
I think he's fine. And I think for the context of a lot of these guys, whether it's, like you mentioned, Doug McDermott or like Chetty Osman, Juan Toscano Anderson, got to keep in mind, we're talking about the 15th guy on the roster here.
Yes.
We're not talking about somebody that's going to come in here and change everything. It's a flyer when it really comes down to it. And Nasir Little is 6'5". I think that there is some intrigue there when it comes to the size that he has, I guess, a decent wingspan as well, but only shot 33% from three throughout the course of his career. Not a great three-point shooter. I think the defense can still be a little questionable, like a lack of discipline in a way. I really think that Phoenix waiving him is a big sign to me. Yeah. Now, I know that they like Ryan Dunn and some of the other guys, the younger guys that they have on their roster, but last year even being on that team and only playing 45 games, I think about 15 of those is really not even playing, Yeah, and they needed help.
10.2 minutes per game.
Yeah. And they needed help. They eventually go trade for Royce O'Neal, which Royce obviously is at a different caliber here. But I think for the most part, getting away from a team that is so desperate to get cheap players that can contribute around these star players that you have kind of says enough for me. I think he can finish, and I think the size length makes you think that there could be some moments you could put him on guys defensively.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind it in a 15th spot, but I like, maybe Chetty or Doug McDermott a little bit better.
But all these guys, right. It's really a matter of what warts are you okay with and not okay with, because all these guys, if they're available,
for sure.
And I think the way fans look at it, including myself, is that maybe you could find a diamond in the rough. And a lot of these guys, I think that's why Osman, to me, he's the most, maybe there's still something there. Right. Everybody else, they kind of are.
Maybe Lonnie Walker, too.
Maybe Lonnie Walker.
Yeah.
But
there was that one big game. I know you love talking about it.
I hate talking about it. But he couldn't even really get time on the Nets.
Right.
So that, like you said, that was a red flag to you when the Suns got rid of Nasir Little, when Lonnie Walker couldn't even find footing with the Nets. And I know they had a bunch of the same type of player, to be fair. That's what was weird to me. And the fact that nobody cares about that. Hey, look, if nobody else cares about that fourth quarter against the Warriors, why should I anymore, right. Brenden?
Well, okay, to be fair, right, what I will point out here is that in that, we're going back again to his Lakers time, right? Which also, by the way, basketball nicknames Skywalker and Buddha for Lonnie Walker, apparently.
Nobody.
Hey, Skywalker's kind of cool. For Lonnie Walker, that's kind of cool. All right, so you go back to the postseason run. Lakers make Western Conference Finals, right? There are 3 games where he has double-digit performances against the Warriors, obviously. But just saying, it's not just the one quarter. We're also picking. Yeah, exactly. I don't blame you for that. I kind of like it. I know this is your guy. I kind of like JTA because,
thank you.
Again, we're talking about a 15th guy, and we saw that, like, as minimal as it was, Kessler Edwards did have a role in a way on a team. Yeah. Like, really, we're talking about playing 2 defensive possessions, but that possession that we talk about against Kevin Durant, that's not nothing.
That's what I'm saying.
Mike Brown loves the idea of, and I think this is a general NBA logic, of show offensive players different defenders.
Yes.
So you're not used to something. There is a value of like, hey, we got one possession here. We got to get a stop. Let's go throw some guy out there that we trust on defense that they haven't seen the entire game.
That's what I'm saying.
Like, again, we're talking
this guy gets it.
But if we're talking about like, if the 15th guy can give you 2 possessions a game, I'm kind of down.
That's what I'm saying, especially against KD.
Right.
All right, and he locked him down.
And I know Mike Brown likes him. Wanted him at the beginning of last year.
Right.
Didn't end up happening. I know that he wanted to bring him into training camp even at the beginning of last year, and that didn't end up happening. And then they got him throughout the course of the season. He didn't stick around, but clearly likes him.
He's always there.
He's always there.
He's always
there.
There
Down in Mexico City.
Yeah, he's not far.
Yeah.
He's not far. All right. I got to bring it up. Because I'm saying, Brenden, if I'm looking at some of these guys here, why don't we just go Timmy time?
I agree with Chris Biederman of like, I just don't even have an opinion.
He doesn't move you at all?
No. Okay. So the role that I think would be good for Drew Timme is, and this feels disrespectful, but it is
just
what
say
it is.
We're too far gone.
A practice squad Domas.
Yeah, I know. We've talked about that. Yeah, but he starts there and then he makes his way up.
Sure. He could try. Yes. He can. I think that in Stockton would make a lot of sense. And, if that's in getting one of the training camp spots and getting an opportunity, getting an Exhibit 10, like what Boogie's on, which is essentially a non-guaranteed contract that also has a clause of if you spend 60 days with our G League team, then you get a certain bonus. I think it's like $75,000, which is what Boogie Ellis has right now.
Okay.
I wouldn't mind giving Drew Timme that same thing, because then you're essentially saying like, hey, we want you to be in Stockton if this doesn't work.
But that to me is right up my alley as to what I'm saying, because I think that Drew Timme has just as much of a chance of getting time as Boogie Ellis. They got 18 guards.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Boogie Ellis got to deal with Mason, the actual roster, and then Colby Jones, Mason Jones, who's a point guard versus a shooting guard. Devin Carter's going to come back. At least and I know he's undersized for his position, but at least Drew Timme can pass the basketball. He can be a Domas light or a diet Domas when Domas on the bench.
A light diet Domas.
A light diet. Okay, fine. All right, just get him in there.
But I do think
let him prove that he cannot play.
we yeah.
Let him prove it.
I don't hate that. And I do think when it comes to Stockton, there's a lot of value, and you're trying to develop about 3 guys down there, maybe 4 if you're throwing Colby in there as well with some of the 2-ways, and allowing them to play in the same offense. They try to run the same offense that Sacramento runs. You got to have a passing big to do that.
That's what I'm saying.
So I like him for Stockton. And he could get
most
miles.
Most miles in the NBA. No, I'm saying Domas.
Okay.
You gotta disperse those miles differently.
Yeah.
And Timmy can get some of those miles. Yes, he can.
Okay.
You watch the
bleach his hair.
Bleach his hair?
Yeah.
Get him going.
The eyebrows, maybe.
And the mustache.
Yeah, and the stash.
The Timmy shimmy. Give it to me right now. Brenden Nunes, thank you so much for joining us. Brenden, so you have the article out with the guys that they worked out and some other guys. And then you also put out something on the in-season tournament as well, right?
Yeah, they're in a group with the Clippers, the Timberwolves, the Rockets, and the Trailblazers this year. Okay. And for what it's worth, the Rockets and the Trailblazers are teams they didn't do too hot against last year. Those are supposed to be the easy ones. The Rockets scored 130 in every game that they played.
That's crazy.
Against
and the last game didn't everybody
play.
Şengün get hurt?
Yes, that's right. That was the scary one, and he didn't play the rest of the season, I believe.
No, he didn't.
But I went back and looked at, since that's the guys they're playing this year, a lot of the rosters are the same outside of PG leaving the Clippers, so kind of went back and looked at how those matchups went last year. They did okay. I believe it was 6-7 split throughout them. I think it was 2-1 against Minnesota, 2-2 against the Clippers, 2-1 against Portland, and then 0-3 against Houston.
Go check it out, SactownSports.com, and follow Brenden on social media, always coming with good tidbits for your Sacramento Kings. Brenden, thanks as always. Hide your bleach blonde products if you are around Brenden. Brenden, we will talk to you soon.
Appreciate you.
Coming up next, we hear from San Vicini on the Game Theory podcast. What is one thing